EA shares pre-alpha gameplay of the next Battlefield. This is Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicle, and for this story, I want to welcome to the stage the one and only Master of Hype, Snowbike Mike.
Jim C brings up Days Gone Remastered.
Oh, yeah, Days Gone Remaster.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they did something with Last of Us because of Last of Us 2. I don't know what they could possibly do.
Yeah, what's left?
Put them out as a bundle pack or something? I don't know. Last of Us Part 1 and 2?
Do you understand how livid the internet would be?
Hey, man.
But
Let's talk about Battlefield.
Do you want to? Oh, what is your mic on?
Is your mic on? He's talking into it. He's saying
Number
yes,
10.
it is. Number 10.
Hold on.
Roger's on it.
While you're figuring that out, let me get into the story. I'm pulling from Tom Ivan at Video Games Chronicle. Electronic Arts has shared the first pre-alpha gameplay footage of the next Battlefield game. About 10 seconds of footage is included at the end of a new video introducing the studios working on the game and a new Battlefield community testing program. Confirming a recent leak, the new closed testing environment for the series is called Battlefield Labs. Quote, Battlefield Labs is a place for us to test concepts and experiences we're excited about with you, our players, according to EA. We want our community to play a key role in the future of Battlefield, and this is an opportunity for many of you to do just that. This is an unprecedented moment for Battlefield, it added. We'll start by testing the pillars of play, like core combat and destruction, then transition to balance and feedback for our weapons, vehicles, and gadgets, ultimately leading to where all these pieces come together in our maps, modes, and squad play. And yes, we'll be testing Conquest and Breakthrough, the heart and soul of our all-out warfare experience. But Battlefield Labs will also be a place to explore new ideas and fine-tune and improve Battlefield pillars, like our class system, Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon, to create deeper, more strategic play, end quote. Players can register now for the chance to participate with initial invites set to be distributed to a few thousand players in Europe and North America. Over time, EA plans to open testing up to other territories and tens of thousands more users. For internal EA studios, which the publisher is collectively referring to as Battlefield Studios, are building and we're going to get into that, are building a connected universe set in modern day. DICE is responsible for its multiplayer component. Motive is working on multiplayer maps as well as single-player mission content. Criterion is mainly focused on single player, and Ripple Effect is creating a new experience for the series. On top of that, I'm going to bring in a couple paragraphs from Eurogamer, Tom Phillips, saying Criterion will return to racing in the future. Quote, the Need for Speed team at Criterion are joining their colleagues working on Battlefield, Zampella said in a statement to Eurogamer today. As a company, it was important to us to take the last year to listen to our Need for Speed community and use their feedback to create content for Unbound. With an increased understanding of what our players want in a Need for Speed experience, we plan to bring the franchise back in new and interesting ways. A lot to unpack there. I'm going to start off with Mike. Mike,
yeah,
you're the Battlefield person in my life.
Bless, I love Battlefield.
How does this strike you? It seems like they're taking this in the same direction as they have with the new Skate game, as far as like getting into the audience's hands early.
Yes, I think a lot of the shooter audience, the shooter genre is always about speaking with the community, hearing your community, and trying to adjust for your community. And a lot of the player base always says, hey, you're not listening to us. Let us get involved earlier. Let us help you set the tone on what the players actually want. And I do like hearing that they want to create Battlefield Labs. They want to get out there early, right? This whole 4-minute package is a bunch of hype. It's a bunch of, hey, we're coming back. We're bringing it. We're giving you the things you want to do. But there's a couple things that really stood out to me. Vince Zampella on the track.
Yeah.
I appreciate Vince coming out and helping this team. That's big. I really, really love single player. Yeah. Right? You talk about the package of Battlefield. What is Battlefield in the future? We talk about chasing trends of course, BRs, of course, of the extraction shooters. I thought before I watched this, well, what is Battlefield going to do again? Are they going to try to chase one of these? No, give me the single player mixed with just the traditional Battlefield multiplayer. That's a win in my books. And so that gets me really excited. And then, of course, the brief just piece of gameplay looks like Battlefield of old. I know we always use the term boots on the ground, but you don't really see a lot of zip lining, no squirrel shoots flying. It just felt like, hey, here was just Battlefield 3 and 4. This is what you knew us for. Let's get back to that. And I'm excited for that.
This destruction is insane. Everything is
Look at that whole building go down.
And then, of course, you know, the 4 talented teams, right? You're trying to create the Avengers of your studios to make the best Battlefield, because we know that Battlefield 2049 did not come out strong. It had a very rocky launch. There was something good at its core, but it wasn't good enough for that first impression to last and pull people away from Halo Infinite at the time, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Apex, all these other games. And so it takes a lot to move that mountain, as you know, Bless. And so I'm excited to see all these 4 teams come together and try to make Battlefield what it once was and make it really, really good.
Does this read concerning to you, though? Like, this sounds a little bit like we've seen this before of like, hey, let's take every team and throw it all at one problem. But the difference to me is like, it seems like they're leading that with, okay, we actually don't even know how to solve the problem, so we're going to kind of work with y'all to try to see if maybe we can figure it out.
I don't think so, Tim. I think, you look at EA and you look at that portfolio, you look at the teams there, and you look at like what they need, what they want to go after, and you look at an IP like Battlefield, and it's not like we were going to drop that after 2049. We just probably needed to get the right people involved, and I think getting Vince at the head of it and probably allowing him to be like, hey, what are the teams you need? How do we best make this happen? And him to go, well, maybe I need 4 teams around the globe that can all be working on this.
Yeah.
I think that's the right move. It's just too important of an IP to lose and come out wrong again, right? Like Battlefield, you can't mess this up one more time.
Well, that's where I come in. Is I see what you're talking about and I see the vision. I think the thing that I wonder about is this over investment into Battlefield? Like, it feels like Battlefield for the last decade feels like it's been living in the shadows of its former competitors, right? Like, it used to be Battlefield versus Call of Duty back in the day, right? Battlefield 3 would come out and it's like, oh man, like, really is a fight here of which franchise is killing it, which franchise is better this year, right? And like, Call of Duty just took the ball and just fucking ran with it.
Of course.
And now it feels like that's dominating everything, and now things have changed where there's Apex, there's Fortnite, there's so many others, Valorant, and I'm naming different kinds of shooters, but like, there's been a transition into so many players, so many successful players, and then also everything is free to play. And so even just like in terms of monetization, the field is different, no pun intended. Or actually, I'm intending my puns.
Yeah.
In 2025.
I like that.
In
Hell
2025,
yeah,
I'm intending my puns. So now that things have shifted so much, it feels like the last few Battlefield games, like post, I'll say Battlefield 1, because I know it seems a lot of people love Battlefield 1.
Yeah.
But post that, it feels like they're trying to chase a former glory that seems like it's not sticking as much as they'd like to. And this seems like hey, we're putting all our cards, right? All our cards on the table. Like, we are investing into Battlefield, having all these studios work on it. Like, does that make you... Wait, what's your take on that?
Just real quick, jumping off of that, one last little point is this is like, we're talking about EA, who in the last month we've talked about like how they invest in their expectations for Dragon Age.
Of course.
Another example of a franchise that they need to hit.
Yeah.
And it came nowhere near sales expectations. So like, with that in mind, Mike.
Here's the thing for me is like, when I think of that, you bring up Battlefield 1, right? Like, there was a moment where Battlefield was getting caught behind the times with the changing tides of what the shooter genre is and now is, right? And I think Battlefield just wasn't able to correct that. But Battlefield brings something that most shooting games don't. And we've seen that really Call of Duty is the only one that stood the test of time with that premium price tag, right? No one else is charging $70 still for their price tags, but they are also one of the few that's bringing you the full package. Battlefield can do that as well. And we've seen a yearn from players that want to get off the hamster wheel of just the Fortnites, the Battle Royales, the extraction shooters. They want that team arena shooter like we saw. People wanted Concord, but they didn't want it to win, of course. But we saw they wanted something different. They look at games like Fragpunk out there. They look at games and they go, oh, I would like to get away from what I'm just doing. Bring me something new. But I think the single player is the big one here, right? Bring us a good single player that people can rally behind, mixed with that Battlefield. You're known for just giant maps. You're known for the team play that not other games have, right? Nobody's bringing in 32v32, 64 versus 64 in the landscape that you're looking at right now. So I think they have something unique here, and you have to nail it. That's why you have to bring 4 teams and make this perfect. It's a big uphill battle. That's why you get the community involved earlier. But they have everything right to make that happen, right? And so will it hit expectations, Tim? No. It will have a lofty expectation that it probably won't hit unless it's really, really great. But we saw Halo had its time, went by real quick, right? Call of Duty is on an annualized cycle. That's why Call of Duty is always so great. Is I truly believe that Call of Duty has figured out the yearly cycle of you play it, you have the honeymoon phase, you're into the next 3 to 6 months of, hey, this is fine. I'm just kind of going through the motions. Okay, give me something new. They hit you with it, right? No other game is doing that. Nobody has that many teams to be able to do that. Battlefield is probably going to give you like a 2 to 3 year cycle. So that means they have to nail the honeymoon period. They have to give you add-on content that we know a lot of the audience is going to drop off on, but as long as you can hold it, you can come back again. But I think that single player is where they're going to try to really bring themselves to another level.
Can I ask a controversial question?
Lay it on me.
If this succeeds, if the next Battlefield comes out and it is the best Battlefield in the last decade and everybody loves it and it has like it gets the millions and millions of players that they wanted to have, does it what's the Dark Knight quote of like you either die a hero and live long enough to see yourself become a villain? At what point is it like, oh, we're just not going to get a Need for Speed anymore from Criterion? Like we're not going to get a like the EA Motive games that they're making because they're working on the Iron Man game, which is going to come out, right? But like, at what point do all these studios just turn into Battlefield studios?
I think we're here.
In the way that Call of Duty has like 7
Only
studios
if it
working on it.
slaps.
But I mean, well,
If
also, I think
it's like
that's
mega
and
slaps,
that's-
then yeah, you're
But
in
like that is kind of like the two situations I see of either it fails and like cool, there's a bunch of layoffs, and then like these studios go back to doing their own things, or it succeeds, and all these studios are now Battlefield studios, and we don't see Motive or Criterion or these guys.
I would push
make a bunch
back
of
on you
other
and
games.
say, how important is Need for Speed? How big is Need for Speed? Maybe not important.
I mean-
but like when you talk about hitting your metrics, really making a splash in something, is Need for Speed right now in 2025 doing that?
No.
Has it been doing that the past 6 years, right? And so I would look at that team and be like, it's clearly not working. The audience isn't screaming, hey, I Need for Speed anymore. This is something that we believe in. You have to come over and help this.
Need for Speed is such an interesting thing because, like, with Unbound coming out, that honestly might have been the most bizarre game release in the history of video games. Like, how did
1000%.
a new Need for Speed with that much production value and that much like unique stuff going on kind of come and go just because like it felt like they were embarrassed of
They
it?
didn't even market
They
it.
didn't market it at all.
I think we got a trailer weeks before, a month before, like
And then it just came out like the worst time.
Came and went.
Didn't it come out like halfway
December?
through December?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell were they doing? Like, why? There's a story there. Why'd they do that?
Yeah.
What the hell happened?
And I mean that's where I look at this story and I wonder of like is this a result, like is a Criterion working on this Battlefield a result of Unbound not performing and like their last two titles maybe not performing as much as EA would have wanted out of it? Is this again the shifting tides of the industry sort of thing of, oh man, all right, we need guaranteed successes, and Need for Speed right now isn't a guaranteed success, especially with how they're releasing them nowadays, right? Like, is this a all hands on deck, boom, Battlefield is what it is, we're gonna make this a success, like otherwise we don't know what we're gonna do here sort of thing? I hear what you're talking about, Mike, as far as
of course.
like you need people to work on something that's gonna get them money back. I just worry about, is Battlefield the one?
Battlefield is
We all know
the
it's
one.
not.
Yeah,
I think that's the problem.
I don't know. I think Battlefield
it-
could be the one.
Battlefield is the only thing that they have that can hit like that.
Okay, yes.
But we all know it's not going to.
Okay, yes.
Like, we all know.
Yeah.
Like, we know. we sit here and we can act like, oh, well, maybe. No. Like, let's
Yeah.
just be real. No.
I mean, there's a landscape here that you could hit. The issue is like, will this break the mold? What is that one? We've talked about it for years now. What is the game that gets people away from Fortnite and gets people away from these games that they're just entrenched in? And nothing has done that yet.
See, my thing is, I think it can be the one if they make it free to play. I don't know if $60 or $70 is the way with these kind of games anymore. Maybe for the campaign, you can charge for a campaign.
Yeah.
But like the multiplayer element of this, if it's not free to play, then what are we doing? You're not going to get people away from Fortnite or these other games.
I almost feel like the conversation about like what's going to get people off of those games.
Yeah.
I think that we're past that point. I think now the people playing those games want more of those games. They want more of what they
They want
already
more
are
battle
enjoying.
royales. They want more
Yeah.
extraction.
They want Fortnite
shooters.
updates.
Yeah, like I feel like they're the idea of like, I think Battlefield's stuck in a very bad position where they either need to do something completely different or they need to do something that's just go back to what you used to do the exact same thing. And I think both are very risky because
Yeah.
the new thing is like, all right, very unlikely to actually pay off. And then just going back to what used to work, look at Halo. Doesn't work anymore.
That's the issue. Is it just feels like it's going to be a Halo situation all
Yeah.
over again. But it has the single player is a big deal. Having that full-fledged product that we used to know is a big deal to, I think, older generations here. Now you look at the younger generations that are making up a lot of the gaming hours, that are that active player base, and I don't know if they're screaming for this, but maybe if they get a taste of what Battlefield really is, that could be it, right? But It'll be interesting to see. I'm excited. I am interested of like why they didn't pull the shot and just do Titanfall. Like, why is this EA team so hands off of like, we don't want to do this? If you're assembling the Avengers team to make the ultimate shooter, just make Titanfall with Vince. Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, it's the name recognition, right? Like, that's the thing I worry about with this decision is you are looking at Battlefield as the IP because Battlefield has had the biggest peak out of all of these, right? And I think right now it is a thing of how do we reach that peak again, as opposed to looking at the space and going, yeah, like what if we invested either in a Titanfall or like make a Titanfall thing, but call it Apex. Like call it Apex because Apex is your big shooter IP right now, and I think you can find ways to double down on that in ways that I think excite people a little bit more. But yeah, I think they're chasing after Battlefield because it is the only first-person shooter IP I think that has ever been able to go head-to-head with a Call of Duty.
With Call of Duty, yeah.
Outside of like, I don't even know if I'll put Medal of Honor back in the day in that bucket. Probably not, right? Like I think Battlefield is the only one, and they keep trying to chase that. And I think that's worrisome. Like, I don't know if that's going to work to everything Tim's talking about.
Seeing that gameplay, though, gets me pretty hyped.
I mean, it looks great.
I mean, it has my favorite gaming word in the world. Levolution. And I want to see Levolution, man. I want to see destructible environments. I want to see only in Battlefield moments. I want to see that Levolution of, hey, somebody did X, Y, and Z to these computers, and now a rocket ship is fucking flying off to the moon, and now the rest of the level is all in disaster. Like, that's what Battlefield brings, and it can be very exciting. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. I'm going to bring in a couple of super chats in. Gary the Third writes in and says, I think Criterion and DICE don't exist in 5 to 7 years because of this decision.
Yeah.
Battlefield will never hit the numbers to justify the cost of 4 studios.
I think
We'll
that's
see.
very true, man.
I can see it.
It's the chicken and the egg type thing of like, we need to make more content to make it worth $70+. So we need the single player. So we need the stuff. It's like, you're thinking about this the wrong way.
Yeah. And then Volk Dasher. Actually, I'm going to skip Volk Dasher for now. There's another one from just Trent Therison who says, would love to see a strong return from Battlefield.
It'd be amazing.
It'd be
Yeah.
amazing. And I'm rooting for it. Like,
Yeah,
I'd love to
of
see
course.
another big first-person shooter, like, be one of those, right? I think if you're putting 4 studios into it, this shit better hit. This shit gotta hit, or else we're in trouble. Or else
We'll see
we're
what
in very
happens.
big trouble. Mike, thanks so much for
Thanks,
joining
boys.
us, man.
Yes. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. I'm going to be real. Aura Frames might be the most popular sponsor product people here have ever had at Kinda Funny. Many of us have Aura Frames set up at their desks, and even more of us have gifted them to friends and family to absolute rave results. Aura Frames was named the #1 digital picture frame by Wirecutter, and it's for a good reason. It's so easy to set up, and they have different frame options. We gifted Aura Frames to Gia's mom and dad this holiday, and they're both obsessed with us being able to upload our wedding photos straight to their frames. All you need is the free Aura app and a Wi-Fi connection, and you can upload as many photos and videos as you want, and your favorite live iPhone photos will play right on the frame. Right now, you can save on the perfect gift that keeps on giving by visiting auraframes.com. For a limited time, listeners can get $20 off of their best-selling Carver matte frame with code KINDAFUNNY. That's auraframes.com, promo code KINDAFUNNY. Don't forget to mention that we sent you to show your support for this show. Terms and conditions apply.
After Dragon Age, the Veilguard layoffs, BioWare has under 100 employees. This is Paul Tassi at Forbes. There's really no getting around the fact that BioWare is in dire straits at the moment, now at the end of a decade of 3 missed opportunities to create new classic RPGs. Now, a new report from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg says that after layoffs and permanent transfers to other EA studios, BioWare is now down to less than 100 employees to finish Mass Effect 5, which still has an unknown release date. This comes after a bizarre statement from BioWare this past week that the full studio wasn't needed for this stage of development of Mass Effect 5, which is not an uncommon practice for many games at a certain stage of development. But this was different, given that in doing so, BioWare was permanently shrinking in size, moving many devs over to elsewhere in EA, but the statement totally masked a number of layoffs, possibly dozens, mainly focused on the Dragon Age the Veilguard team. Reportedly, the studio has shrunk from 200 employees around 2 years ago to less than 100 currently. The tweet or the Blue Sky post from Jason Schreier reads, after the release of Dragon Age the Veilguard, dozens of BioWare employees were told they were temporarily assigned to other projects within EA. This week, a twist. Those temp assignments are now permanent transfers, and BioWare has shrunk. Unfortunate, dude.
I mean, combine this with the last story. It tells a tale.
Yeah.
These big publishers are in trouble. It is bad.
Yeah.
And we've seen it for the last couple of years with Ubisoft, and we're seeing it with EA. They're in shambles, trying their best to figure out how do we just even make money at all at this point. Like, this is so worrisome, and especially after, we've talked to death at this point that Dragon Age did not hit expectations. And that is so concerning because of how valuable that IP is to gamers and to EA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at Mass Effect, one of the most marketable game franchises we've had in modern generations. Like, one of the few game franchises to break out and have merch everywhere you look.
Yep.
You see N7s everywhere, And for how bad they got Andromeda and then Anthem, bring up all the things that we already know.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing about this gives me faith that the next Mass Effect is going to hit the way they need it to. And I just feel like we are broken records at this point of talking about these big games of like, is it going to do what it needs to do? Whether it's Assassin's Creed, Dragon Age, any of these things, Battlefield, like, we're in a bad spot that it feels like they're like, hey, out of desperation, just throw more and more and more at this problem. Reading this, it's like, all right, so you're throwing less at Mass Effect? Are those people that are being temporarily placed, are they going to Battlefield?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's actually kind of wild to think about it that way. But yeah, this is one where I don't have much more to add after kind of talking about the previous story about this one last week. But everything you mentioned there did make me just think about like all of the EA IP that they have and how tough it has been to see them like not be able to capitalize on it, right? Like, it seems like there's been struggles in ways where I'm like, man, but you're EA. Like, you have, not only do you have so many sports titles that continue to generate revenue for you year over year, but you have
They're not enough anymore.
They're not enough anymore. You have access to Star Wars. You have Battlefield. You have Dragon Age. You have Mass Effect. Like, big IPs.
And Game of the Year winners.
And Game of the Year winners, when you look at things like It Takes Two, right? Like, in like even Jedi, right? Nominated all the time, right? But it's pretty wild to see you have access to so much, but that isn't doing it. Like, what is the formula that's not working here? Like, what is the thing? What is the misstep? Is it just over expectations? Is it the fact that when there's any dip in revenue, the whole ship just gets shaken up and like you can't handle just a dip because, yeah, like there's less players or people aren't as engaged in video games because like there's not the like work stay at home thing. Like, what is it that's leading to all of this? Because this seems wrong.
Yeah, and I think that this is all just a sign of a chasing of numbers going up at any cost and needing everything to double and triple and go bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think the pandemic and all that stuff is just like a blip on the radar when you really look at the cause of all of this when it started, which is games realizing they could monetize past their initial sale. The moment that shift happened, we saw a change in EA and Ubisoft in their output and in the way that they treat their games, and to some level of success. And I don't necessarily think this is all a bad thing. Like, I do want to give Ubisoft flowers for one thing, if anything, which is finding ways to monetize games and have even non-live service games kind of live on and kind of have communities. And the amount of IP that Ubisoft are continuously supporting year after year is very impressive. I think that that's less true now. I feel like that's a little stale, but like thinking back 10 years ago, like what they were able to pull off is pretty damn commendable.
Yeah.
But I think that they didn't have a next step. They didn't know what to do after they were able to come up with this, and now we're kind of seeing the well kind of dry up a bit, and we see both EA and Ubisoft looking at their strategy and being like, hey, we're not making more and more and more. This is bad. How do we fix this? And I feel like there isn't really a way to fix it because the shareholders don't care about the reasons. They just need the numbers to be bigger, right? So yeah, it's just scary with the EA in particular because of how big they are, and if they're, we're seeing that their FIFA or their FC stuff is not making as much money as they're hoping or needing it to. We're just talking about Need for Speed. It's just like, if we're at a point now where they've kind of like fucked up all of their major IP, and we're like giving up on things like Need for Speed, that sure, maybe that's not going to be a 10 million plus seller, but why not? I feel like the brand is there. Like, they should be able to like create a product out there that is profitable.
I mean, I think it is just the more, right? We need more money. We need more, like, we I guess stakes get ratcheted up more and more to where you look at something like EAFC, where it is still one of the best-selling games of the year last year. I assume. I'm sure I looked at like the top 10, but I can't tell you right now where EAFC is on the top 10. I can tell you that it's there and it's probably in the top 3. And to have a game that sells that much, but to still go, not enough, right? It's
Yeah.
like the year where Call of Duty Vanguard came out, and like I think there was the report after that where Activision wasn't happy with the Vanguard sales, even though Vanguard #1 selling game of the year that year. It's like, okay, well, there's something wrong here. Like, there's something deeply wrong here with the inner workings and how money is flowing if you can't make this justify. And that might just fall back to the video game business and how expensive it is to make video games, market video games, and like have that balance out with sales. And yeah, like you mentioned, right? Like the moment video games realized, the industry realized you could make money post that initial sale with like live monetization, the expectations balloon even more for what we need you to be able to do as a video game. And yeah, like I pitched this to Greg in a DM, but I really want to like have an episode of Gamescast where we sit down, maybe we get Matt Piscatella, and we just talk numbers of where is everything going wrong?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening right now?
I love that.
Because it seems like shit is just out of whack in ways that it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
So
and in ways that feel like we're going down a path that is unrecoverable.
Yeah.
You know,